Welcome to the Revenue Room podcast. I'm Heather Holst-Knudsen, your host and CEO and founder of H2K Labs and the architect behind the Revenue Room portfolio. This is where CEOs and revenue-critical C-suite leaders come when they're done with theory and want the truth about what actually drives growth in a data and AI-powered economy. Every episode brings you the most interesting, forward-thinking operators in the media, events, and data information services industries. These are the people who are not just talking about the future, they're building it. These are the leaders rewriting business models, redefining value creation, and moving faster than the market's trying to disrupt them. Everything we talk about is shaped by the ecosystem behind us. Revved Up is our flagship summit for CEOs and revenue-critical CXOs who trade real playbooks, not platitudes. And Revenue Room CXO is our invitation-only network and year-round growth operating system for leaders who refuse to fall behind. If you're listening, you already feel the urgency. The gap between companies that adapt and the ones that don't is widening. And the question really is where you'll land. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Revenue Room. We often talk about data as the new oil. I've heard that many, many times. But for the $40 billion global events industry, the real challenge has moved beyond collection to monetization. How do we turn billions of interactions into measurable revenue and shareholder value? My guest today is arguably the architect of the industry's most significant data transformation. As the former Chief Transformation Officer and President of IIRIS at Informa, he led the creation of a B2B data engine that captured over 1.8 billion audience interactions and built a known audience of over 15 million decision makers. He didn't just digitize events, he helped turn a trade show giant into a data-driven market access platform. But he believes we are now entering a new era, the agent economy. He argues that we're still in day zero of AI, if you could believe that, moving from passive tools to active agent-based innovation that drives profitability by eliminating digital friction. He is now the co-founder and CEO of Markus AI, where he is deploying intelligent agent crews to ensure every connection is intentional and every conversation is actionable. Please welcome a leader who has driven commercial transformation across Pfizer, Pearson, and Informa, Max Gabriel. Max, I'm so delighted to have you with us today. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. That was hell of an intro. And would you be my branding agent? It was nicely done, and I've watched many of your episodes. It's become a weekend thing these days, and you've had some amazing guests. So thrilled to be here.
Great. Well, I'm thrilled to have you. You know, I always love talking with you because just whenever we start a conversation, it really never ends. We've got a lot to talk about, but your focus on data and what you're doing with AI is just fascinating to me, as well as your ability. Like if you look at your history, working for big companies and now being a startup founder, like that's a big leap. And we'll talk about that in the podcast. So that leads us into our first question, Max. You've led major transformations across 6 industries and 4 continents, from navigating the financial crash at MBIA to steering the world's largest events business through the pandemic. You've said there are 3 things you've had the privilege of doing in every job: bringing ordinary teams together to do extraordinary things, solving complex problems through storytelling, and constantly learning new industries. And I want to start with that first point because I actually think that is really pertinent to our listeners today. When you stepped into Informa to build IIRIS, or back at Pfizer running a $300 million transformation, how did you go about convincing an ordinary team that they were capable of doing something extraordinary?
Yeah, look, very good question. In fact, there's a backstory to it, Heather, and then I'll come into Pfizer, because Pfizer's program was actually a foundation for Informa a decade later. So the backstory was when I was in high school, our school was always number 2. No matter how hard we tried, we were always number 2. And I remember this moment vividly. Second year in high school, for a debate competition, we put our heart and soul into it. We thought we won, we were number 2. And the same school beat us every single time. They were always number 1. So it's the next day after the competition, we were all completely disheartened. And the headmaster gave this incredible speech. I don't think he meant to, but it was a great speech. He said, The school that won, the number one, they choose the top talent, cream of the crop, and that's how they're number one. And our school chooses everybody. We bring people from all parts of the town and the country, and we still give our best shot. And we climb up the ladder, and we're still number two. And something about that, and I think he did make this quote about, that is, I would take that bet of ordinary people doing extraordinary things every single time rather than choosing, the cream of the crop. Mm-hmm. Not that there was a direct line, but, these things go into your archive somehow, right? And then, much later in the career, I found myself in the situation where multiple times you are dealt with hand of putting together the team. And I always start to look for a very ordinary team. And ordinary is good because extraordinary is hard, and it's hard to do it in a sustainable way. So coming back to Pfizer, how it translated was Pfizer was running this large-scale commercial transformation program. This was in 2009. And I was an outsider. I knew nothing about pharma. I had worked in financial services until then. I just walked in and I was one of the 5 leads running this program. And it was by choice. They wanted an outsider to lead this work stream. And I had no team. And this program, I learned so much. It was a master class on how to run large-scale commercial transformation. They had experts from all the consulting companies helping us shape it. I learned a lot in terms of what are the key ingredients to get it right. And when I walked in, they were just about to get into execution. So going around the company, handpicking teams, a group of individuals, they were not a team, group of individuals coming together and forming the team around a common goal. That was exciting. That was actually ambitious. And going down the journey was incredible, and we learned a lot. And I had to lean on the team because they are from the industry. They understood it. And the fact that Pfizer was shifting their marketing and sales model from what they used to do and more data-driven was a fantastic time for me to get involved in it. And it was fascinating. It was all of that sounds obvious now, but to do it in 2009, for me to walk into that, it was a perfect opportunity in that context.
Mm-hmm. So then you brought that over to Informa, and the thing is with event organizations, and it's changed today, but let's say back when you started, these were companies that were very steadfast in their business model, which was selling real estate in a rented real estate for a trade show. And you you really shift that. Talk about that, because that to me, I think for the listeners, especially those who are in the middle of the transformation themselves or just starting out, is they're looking at their teams going, how do I do this with the team I have in place?
Yeah, something strange I picked up, right? This program that happened in Pfizer, they never once mentioned it was a data program at all. It was all about customer interaction. Regardless of the channel they were working with, the singular intention was, how do you make the customer interaction better? Whether the physician is, having a sales call, calling customer service, they're visiting your website, how do you make it contextual and personalized for them? And that was actually very important because we were a cross-functional team. Nobody saw it as a data program. And then I come over to this world, everything is about data. Even the media programs today, the media companies always talk about first-party data. And I feel like we're probably missing a trick because it becomes a technical thing rather than a calling card for the entire organization to get behind. If the focus is on customer interaction, then sales has a role to play, marketing has a role to play, content has a role to play, and it's not just a data program on the side. It's something I saw that was strange. Yeah, go ahead.
No, the key there, and everyone's talking about this now with AI too. And I just think we always get into it when anything new and shiny and tech data comes.
Sure.
At Pfizer, they were solving a problem.
Yes.
And that's what they were focused on, solving the customer interaction problem.
And it was unambiguous. Yeah.
Right. but now we're all data, AI. We're not solving problems. We're trying
Right.
to almost create a problem so that we could say we're using AI or data.
Yeah.
And I
No,
think
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. No, it was subtle, but actually profound learning. So when we kicked things off, obviously we did this around COVID, kicking off the whole IRIS program. And look, huge credit to the group CEO, Stephen Carter. He believed in it. Without that, this wouldn't have happened because, as you know, 80 to 85% of these programs fail. The larger the company, the chance of failure goes up. So when we kicked it off, we knew the odds were against us in terms of trying to do this across the program. So leadership buy-in was super important, not a one-off thing, but a continuous push from the top. Without that, it's a no-go. And you know this. You've led many of these initiatives. Go ahead.
Yep.
No, I thought you were going to
No,
come in.
that's my go. That really leads into my next question because if you think about Informa, you've
Yeah.
got, which is a great example. And by the way, there are mid-market companies that actually look like Informa when I describe this, which is it's a business that was created through the acquisition of other businesses that were pieced
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So you right there, you've got a data nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
different platforms, different ways you call things, different like hierarchies and conventions and hygiene and SOPs, all operating relatively independently for quite some time. I mean, even now you look at Informa Markets and you have very different divisions that are doing their thing in their own SOPs, et cetera. You've got Informa Connect, et cetera. So you not only had to have the leadership alignment, that those leaders needed to,
Yes.
this had to filter down.
Yeah.
So how did that work from a culture
Yeah.
standpoint? And where did you get some lessons learned? And then I want to talk about the data side, the infrastructure, actually, because the complexity here is mammoth.
Sure. No, you're right. The three things were is a top leadership button. If not, it's a no-go. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't stop there, as you said, because it's a day-to-day battle. And what I call it as, how do we win the hearts and minds? And I don't mean that in a tongue-in-cheek, because in large organization, if you try to mandate and force the change, that's the easiest way to get people disengaged. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get the market leaders and the brand leaders really excited about it, that this is actually going to create additional value? It's going to solve their problems. And not be a distraction, not be a central program that's being shoved onto their brand. And part of that, Heather, was the markets we chose. We chose them very carefully for the initial batch. Are
Mm-hmm.
the brand leaders and market leaders inherently get it? Do they see the value? In fact, even the first two we went after, there was a lot of method to the madness because that is going to set the tone of the whole program. So we
Yeah.
wanted the leaders that bought into it. They had real problems to solve. That helped us a lot. And they were willing to come for the ride. And the first year we did like 12 markets, which had about dozens of brands. But key learning is if the leader bought into it, it was a success. The
Mm-hmm.
flow through was, yes, we had issues. It was not a smooth sailing, but they were coming along for the journey. It was a collaboration. If the leader did not buy into it, we were not focused on the outcome. You are picking up the battle every
Yeah.
day, focused on the wrong things, for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
That no,
Uh,
the lesson there actually, and even for me, I just learned something. Typically, what I always recommend doing a pilot, right? Start
yeah.
with a pilot. Never boil the ocean. But I always say go for the industry that's going to be the most
Yes.
predisposed to
Yes.
accepting this change. What you're saying is it's not just the industry. You could have the best industry, but if the team's not ready, it's going to fail.
Big difference. Big difference.
Yep.
The actual leader of the brand makes all the difference because your early case studies are going to come from there. And if
Mm-hmm.
they're not bought into it, if they're not seeing the value, you're not set up on the right path. The third piece of this whole program was very beginning, we knew there's a multi-year program. How do we show progress and proof points along the way? That was very important
Mm.
because you
Yep.
can't say year one, phase one is 12 months, phase two is 6 months. It's not going to work. And we have a lot of brands and a lot of markets to cover. So early on, we came up with a model. This is a 1,000-day journey as opposed to saying it as 3-year program. The moment we said 1,000 days, it just set the cadence for the program right. But we said every 100 days, we're going to try and achieve a proof point. So that gave a very faster cadence for the program so that we had an opportunity to reset, retrospect about the program where we are and course correct along the way. So people knew, okay, let's watch what happens next 100 days. Let's watch what happens next 100 days. And we got to a point after the third cycle, brands were saying, when are you going to onboard IIRIS onto our brand? And that's what we wanted in terms of winning hearts and minds.
Right. So they're knocking on your door saying, we want. Yeah. No, and that's another smart piece of advice. And it's where a lot of, some heads get chopped is if you it's not only an overpromise, it's just too long for realization, and investors and your board get impatient. And you haven't set up the structure to say, when they are impatient, you haven't set it up in a way to say, yes, we've hit this milestone. You just, because you don't have milestones. And so really great piece of advice for the listeners. So you didn't, at Informa, you didn't just build this massive database, right? That ingested, I'm sure it's now even more. 1.8 billion is the number I have. You also did something called KEMA, which is the known decision makers, right? 15 million or so. How did you deal with the fragmented data silos that I described earlier? What was the hardest part of connecting the dots? And really, if it is actually, it gets down into a little bit of the weeds of technology, and let's do it.
Yeah, a couple of breakthroughs, and I wouldn't say we had a perfect plan and we just executed it. One of the key principles for this program was, look, we're going to do less talking, more doing, which means we're actually going to start doing things rather than trying to convince people about it. The two big breakthroughs, our architect came up with the data lake concept, which is not novel anymore, but how do you make it easier to take the data and dump it in a place, just keep it in a place, rather than going through a traditional ETL process where you have to make sure everything you're taking is usable. You got to go through the whole transformation and load, which is a much longer path to get there. So just taking the data and putting in a data lake was an easy way where we were able to capture more and more data from brands and put them in one place, step one. The second one, we almost bumped into it accidentally. You and I chatted about this IIRIS Insights, IIRIS Recommend, all that. One of the invisible but the most powerful tool was called IIRIS Tracker, right? It came up as in a brainstorming session from the team, and the idea was, how do we implement Tracker on every website we have in a scalable way so we can capture the interaction from the website? So it's like dropping a Google Pixel, right? How you do pixel tracking. That wasn't part of the original plan, but the moment we rolled it out to 600 websites in a couple of weeks, now you're starting to get all the interaction data, which was never collected, never gathered before, into one place. And the combination, go ahead.
No, keep going. I'll wait.
Makes sense, right? So collecting all the data sets into one lake, and then now you're getting the dynamic interaction data from every single website, event website, email campaign, media website, all of that coming at scale. The combination of that was really powerful. If we had gone through a very structured approach of brand by brand, we would have never gotten there.
No, and actually there's something else here that I'm capturing. Let me know if I'm right on this, is that you actually skipped over a couple of hurdles, which was you went immediately to a structured, semi-structured, unstructured data set that you were able to then blend to get the insights, versus doing the big mistake that people make is they say, well, let's deal with the structured data first.
Yes.
And then you've locked yourself out.
Correct. You get the demographic, you focus so much on demographics. It's a lot of hard work by the time you get to the behavior data. You just spent a lot of time on that. And we did parallel, and we did it at scale.
Right. And I think, again, for listeners out there, why this is really important, and it just seems so obvious, but so many event organizers don't get it. Who cares what someone told you a month ago?
Yeah,
I mean, just structured data. It's a form someone fills out. I mean, one is
yeah,
they never answered it accurately
yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
We've been harassing them with too many questions. But even if they did answer it correctly, the speed at which things are changing now is just what I
yeah,
told you 60 days ago or 30 days ago or even 15 days ago may be different in terms of my needs and where I am in the buying process, for example.
yeah,
What's important is what I'm telling you with my behaviors, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it,
And
like
recency of it, recency of that
exactly.
interaction is so valuable. Yeah,
All right. An example is I always go into the grocery store with a list that I wrote down 3 days ago because at that time
yeah,
I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And I go and I'm like, I don't feel like that anymore. And I
yeah.
start navigating. Now, I wish there was somebody there, the AI person, telling me, "Oh, Heather, I see you're now in a mood for this. Have you thought like let me speed
It's
you up?"
coming.
Right. Oh,
It's
yeah,
coming.
probably.
Yeah,
Would make my husband much happier accompanying me to the grocery store. So,
yeah,
all right. Now, let's look at the governance side
yeah,
because again, with an organization the size of Informa, with all of the different divisions, govern to keep this pristine and creating value, there has to be data governance,
yeah,
rules of the road, hygiene. How were you able to accomplish that? Because that's a real huge task.
yeah.
And did you have to hire people, like training? What did you have to do for that?
Yeah, look, I mean, you can imagine the privacy and how you manage consent alone in a global company. It's got
Mm,
so much nuances and complexity. Forget US and Canada, you include France, Germany. How do you deal with, Asia, where you have JV partners? What's the sharing rights on that, right? It's very, very nuanced. So we had a commercial council as a cross-functional team. They are in charge of, okay, how do we create more value out of it? And then we had a data governance council. Their job was to stop us from stop us from getting into trouble. So we separated that out, Heather, so that
mm-hmm,
the commercial team wasn't impeded by the governance issues, and the data governance wasn't dipping into, preventing value being created. So we had two
mm-hmm.
dedicated models so that we can focus on. You're always, banging on about, okay, where's the revenue opportunity here? Where's the new revenue opportunity, right? So if you completely look at it from governance angle, we may not get to the value creation. But if you do the
Right.
value creation and ignore the governance, and that's not good either.
Well,
So we had
right,
two
right.
different, right? We had two different bodies to try to manage that effectively. But look, it was complex. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wanted access to other brands' data, but they were not willing to give access to their own brand to others because they felt they won't handle it with care. They'll be reckless with it. That's naturally how people feel. So we had to make them comfortable around
This is like female roommates in college. I'll borrow
that.
your outfit, but no, you can't borrow mine. So
I
I don't
wouldn't
know
know
why that
about that,
popped
but
into my head, but that's totally the first thing that popped in. Like, so well, we talked that was really interesting in terms of your background and career. But I really would love to now move into what you're doing today because I
yeah,
think this is really exciting. It's all of this knowledge that you've gained in your skill set and your intelligence to now really driving value for more than just one event organizer, now many. So you've launched a company back in 2024. At the time we met, it was called Augmented AI. And
yeah,
you had Leads AI and Media AI. And now that
yep.
has pivoted. And just give me a little background on this. You pivoted to Markus AI. Is that bringing Leads and Media AI into one solution? And
Yeah,
now you've
it's
rebranded it?
it's evolution, not
Okay.
a pivot. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I think the pivot is probably around how we do it, which is actually a good topic. Let's get into it.
Yep.
Um,
Perfect.
Augmented AI, April 2024, precisely April 1st, 2024, is when we started it. And the idea was to really serve B2B media publishers and event organizers. Considering my background, that's where we started. And our plan was let's focus on data monetization. right? Is where we spent our time. This sounds like a common problem, so let's go talk to organizers and see how are they addressing it. And as you would imagine, this is your wheelhouse, Heather. You spend a lot of time in this space on data monetization. There's a spectrum of organizers, right? People that were contemplating about should we bring the data silos
Right.
together, people that have chosen the technology halfway there but not happy with the progress. And there were people that have a platform, organize the data, looking ways to monetize it. And that is where we were talking to organizers about what interesting opportunities exist to monetize the data. So Leads AI was such an incarnation to say, okay, you have all these lead data you collected. Can you monetize that by offering this as value-added services to your sponsors? Now, full disclaimer, as part of IIRIS, we launched a similar product at Informa called Lead Insights. And that was very successful. In fact, going back to your question about doing IIRIS just with governance and getting the data, improving marketing is good enough. But if you don't create new revenue channels, it was not a successful program. So I spent a lot of sleepless nights around, okay, how do you create a new program, new product revenue? Despite the advice I got saying, pick one and focus on it, we knew, if you're running a 3-year program, if you don't have a standalone revenue, it's going to be a problem. So Lead Insights was launched. It was, it's a very successful product. Information about this public. You can look at that. And we learned a lot through that. So when we started talking to medium and large organizers about what are they working on, and this was a gap. This was an industry gap, both on the event side as well as on the media side, Heather, where people are offering client reporting in different formats, in inconsistent formats. Webinar campaigns go out in different format, then newsletter, then lead gen. So we felt, hey, there's a nice opportunity for us without undertaking complex data project, which we didn't want to do it. What practical approach we can do to offer the insights so that people can actually monetize is the direction we took.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding this, so if I'm a media brand that does events, I have
Yeah,
webinars, I do lead generation, I've got digital advertising. What Markus AI allows you to do is connect the dots
yeah,
between, let's say I do a multi-channel program, right? And I'm
yeah,
delivering the reporting to a customer. And I
yeah,
actually am moving beyond just delivering a static flat report saying, here's what we did on that. It's actually showing a connected view of the program whereby like this set cohort of leads engaged with these 3 things, and these are
yeah.
other behaviors that happened. So you're enriching the leads, you're showing the full end-to-end engagement with the campaign. And then I believe, well, first of all, did I get that part right?
You got that right, except we're not in Marcus yet. It's still leads and media
Okay.
AI. We'll get to
Okay.
Marcus in a second, but you're right.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
pulling all that pieces together, not just saying, here are the leads you generated, but showing the connections. And one of the most important thing is, why is this relevant to your ICP? For the sponsor to
Yes.
say, I know you
Yes.
want to reach this sector, this buyer. You collected 100 leads, but there's 30% of them
Mm-hmm.
absolutely aligned with your ICP. So, here's your priority leads that you need to work on, and how can we help them activate? That was we knew the
Got it.
problem, we knew the data infrastructure. That's what we did. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's move on to Markus, because I
Yeah.
want to hear how this evolved. I'm curious, as you
So
can tell.
what was interesting was when we started in April, we got off with the project. I'm so grateful for the early champions and partners that gave us a chance, worked with us. The product was going really well, but our mental model was data was the core, AI was the topping. That's how we approached it, right? You still put all the hard work on data, and then we'll use AI to infer insights on top of it. So AI was not the core. AI was a layer on top of the database we were building out. That was our initial approach at augmented AI. So the pivot happened. I call the epiphany or the enlightenment moment happened in October 2024. I was invited to speak at a panel, And I started digging into this quite a bit and saying, what is happening in the agent world? It was early days, very, very early days. I was just fascinated where this could go, right? Where the agent world is going to go. We'll unpack that in a second. And my prediction, October 2024, was the past 15 years, we've lived in an economy where there's an app for everything. We're going to go into a place where there's going to be an agent for almost everything. That was my prediction, October 24. I've corrected that prediction, saying actually not only there's going to be an agent for everything, there's going to be more agents than people very, very soon, right? Which is, I stand by it. It's going to happen, and you know it's coming. Then the pivot was, wait a second, AI is not a topping, AI is the core, because all the work we've done is focused on structured customer data. And there's so much unstructured data out there in an enterprise, conversations, what we're talking. Now, meeting summaries, meeting notes, and all this data that exists, which AI, Gen AI, is great at synthesizing and drawing insights out of it. So the pivot around that is, no, AI has got to be the core. Data is an important part of it. But you're tapping into other data sets, and how can you build agents that actually solve this problem for you rather than giving you a tool to do the job? We got to unpack this bit more, because this is the crux of where things are headed. So that's when we decided we got to be AI or agent-centric company. And that's when I set up Marcus as the evolution of our thinking.
Okay. Describe how agents work in Marcus.
Yeah. So I'll describe how agents work generally, right? For example, to prepare for and then I'll come to Marcus, to prepare for the podcast. What you're doing now you've done, hundreds of them. Now you probably have a playbook or cheat sheet to do it, but I bet there are a number of things you had to do. I'm sure you use chat, Gemini to do research, LinkedIn, all that, right? So there's probably, what would you say, about 30, 40 different tasks to put together this podcast? Is that fair?
At least.
Or more?
At least.
At least, right?
At least.
And that is where we are today, right? You are using different tools to perform different tasks, as opposed to the world I envision, which is imminent, is you can tell your podcast agent, H2K podcast agent, one day to say, hey, here's the guest. You know my history of podcast. Go and do the research, prepare the script, and get it ready for me. And the agent is able to go do all the 50 different tasks for you. We're not there yet. We're not there. But it is able to do all those things and give you the result the way you want it. And that's why I call, go on.
No, it's funny you use the podcast as the example, because in my head, like, I have such a process now that I follow.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yes, the first, I have call recordings with the people I'm going to be working with on the podcast. I'm going to be interviewing, and that's actually the meat of what I go, because that's where the authenticity comes in. But I also want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. I use Perplexity for research. I go, okay, I want to know where else they spoke. Are there many articles written about them? Things I need to be aware of, and red flags, green flags. Once I pull that, I then upload it into a project into Claude, and I use Claude for podcasts, and for blog creation I use ChatGPT for more marketing, and then I do that. But then I'll take my questions from Claude, because sometimes Claude is a little too serious, and then I upload them into, I say, hey, what do you think for my audience? Are these the right questions? Now, it's not perfect, but all of that's manual. And then I have to hand it off. Then we create a notebook in Gemini so that my team can collaborate on it after, once the podcast's done, and upload. I mean, when you said it's 80 things, like it is, but okay. So.
And just hold on, right? You perfected the science of doing this. How many podcasts have you done, Heather, so far? 50?
Probably 50, yes.
Probably, right? Let's say, 50 to 100. You're well on your way towards your 100. Let's celebrate it when you reach there. But there is a playbook around it. You mastered it, and there's a history of these podcasts with rich information about your voice, how you do it, your authentic tone, and all of that, right? It is perfect for an agent to go through it, learn your voice, learn your tone. You have a playbook of here are the 50 things we need to do. That's why agents are useless without people, right? They're useless without the people.
Yes.
Yeah,
And actually, I want to jump in here because,
please
okay,
do.
so because this, and this is the part where I think people, leaders get very tripped up. People are absolutely have to be, you're not going to get rid of people because of AI. You're going to need either
Yeah,
different skills or new
yeah,
people but they have
yeah,
to know how to use AI. And you
yeah.
actually are going to have, like for me, I would love to say that my brain works in such a way that I could build an agent. It doesn't. It just won't. I need an agent creator.
Correct.
I feel like this is
Correct.
a new role.
Yes.
Is my
Yes.
agent, my agent ninja.
Yeah. And that's where I'll jump into Marcus in a second, because we don't believe agents are here to replace. It's actually here to amplify what you do so that you can focus on the creative aspect of it. It's a co-collaborator for you to do, but you shouldn't be going into 10 different tools to do this. That's not worth it. But you should spend time saying, okay, what are the things I need to do, and feed it, and in terms of training the agent without subject matter experts. There is no AI revolution. There's no AI value creation. And that is not being spoken enough about it, right? People are just playing around because it becomes a CFO business case to say, oh, yeah, no, we'll do this and there's operational efficiency. That's actually completely missing the point,
Yeah.
right? There is
Yeah.
this tacit knowledge. Now, let me come into the event, right? 10 years at Informa, I've been fascinated by what an event crew does, which is event operations team, sales team, marketing team, how they plan for it, how they prepare for it, how they put out a great show. You're an organizer, we have an event coming up in a few weeks. There's a lot of things that go into it to putting up that event, right? Which is where we're not calling Marcus as another event app or a platform. We actually think this is an extension of your event crew. That's how we're positioning it,
Yeah.
which means there are a lot of things the organizers are doing to create a better experience for the attendees, better experience for the sponsors, and make sure that they walk away satisfied so they will come back. And if you said there's about 80 tasks for a podcast, there's about at least 800 of them to put out a great show. And this is where our job is. How can we build agents that take the grunt work away from the organizers so that you're putting out a great experience rather than having 10 different apps, 10 different websites for you to go do this information over and over again. People shouldn't be filling out forms. People shouldn't be trained on tools. Agents should be doing their work, and people are focused on connections.
That's great. So now let's go into talk to me about what Marcus does from the agent standpoint,
Yeah.
because one of my pillars when having been I am an operator again,
Yeah, you are.
but back in the old days when I was running a brand that had multi-channel touch points for my customers, and they were spending $500,000 with us doing our events and what we lead gen and webinars. I mean, the frustration for me always is like, I know I'm delivering these great leads to them. I know it's a portion, it's demand, and there's signals here, but I can't, one, give them the signals the way that I want to, and two, like, how do I help them extend, like automated, like there are 3 leads in like we've got to go after them right now for them. Like I want to automate like an ABM campaign that's based on what the intelligence isn't telling me, not some spreadsheet like, oh, those look great and they're dead on arrival. So so let's talk about what Marcus does, because I think you might solve that problem.
We are definitely on a pursuit to solve, what you just said about last mile, because you can, let's just say you create all that insights and you're handing over to somebody, assuming they will follow through. right? And now they have to take that data, import it into their system and make sure all those align before they run a campaign. This is where these things get lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? So our plan is we do three things right now, and I'll talk about the three personas we have, which is quite intriguing. The first one is pre-event. My hypothesis around it is if your input is not good, your output is not going to be very good. So, which means what can you do pre-event planning for the sponsors and the attendees so that they are well prepared on what they're walking into?
Mm-hmm.
Which means including one of the Marcus agent, the pre-event agent called an executive coach, would interview you as an attendee and say, hey, Heather, what would you like to get out of this event? What does success look like for you? Who exactly are you trying to target? What's your ICP? So imagine it's your best salesperson who understand the industry, but taking a coaching style conversation to help you define your goal. Do that for the sponsor, do that for the attendee. It's not
Mm-hmm.
done. To your point, it's not a registration form they fill out because they're filling that out 3 months prior to the event.
Right.
But doing that right before the event as you're preparing for that, where Marcus is actually helping you define, okay, a 3-minute interview. At the end of it, it's going to say, here are the three goals I've captured. Does it make sense to you, Heather? Do you want to make any change? Now I'm going to make all the recommendation based on these goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen today. There are a number
No.
of tools out there. You know that, right? Right?
They've been talking about this for such a long time, by the
Yes.
way. Like, I
Yep.
remember back when I was um, after I got back into the industry, was with Feather as their
Yeah,
interim
I remember
VP of
that.
sales. And their whole pitch was the new generation coming in. They wanted inspire and delight and personalized experiences. Like, that was back in like 2016, 2017.
Right.
And I kept saying, well, how do you personalize the experience when you don't know what they want?
Yes, that's it.
Right.
It's a great idea. There are a number of matchmaking platforms out there. I like them all, but it's not the algorithm. If you don't know what they want, what are you doing this based on? Definitely not based on a registration information somebody filled out 3 months before with 5 pages long, and they were just trying to get through it. They're not in the frame of mind. And some of them attend dozens of events, right? And you're asking them to do all that. So that's one in terms of how do you help them clarify the goal, which is why we chose the coach as a personality so that he's actually interacting with you to glean the goals. And it's made available to you. So you can see it and fine tune it or change it how you want it. Step one. Step two is once you're at the event, Marcus is actually making you recommendations. There's a concierge who is completely trained on your event context about what the event is about, what sector you serve, who are the speakers, what's the agenda. It knows all that information so you can ask any question to the concierge. The concierge is all about the event and it can help you answer. It can help you make the connection. To say, look, I'm looking for this. Who do I meet? It's actually giving you the recommendation in a very contextual way. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead.
What's
You
the
had a question.
revenue model? Because this sounds very much like who's getting benefit from this is the event organizer. So I would be paying Marcus for this because those agents are enabling me to one, convert attendees better because I know
Yeah.
what they want better. Two,
Yeah.
engage them better because I know what they want better. And three, with that
Correct.
engagement, I'm assuming that there's a higher repeat, conversion.
Yeah.
So that's the event organizer or media company who's hosting events.
Yes.
And I hate saying that, by the way, because every media company does events.
It's a channel. Yeah. Yeah.
But what is there another like angle in here where your agents are helping like the event organizers customers, like the exhibitors or sponsors?
Yeah, so all these are delivered to the sponsors and exhibitors, right? These agents are made available for the organizers and sponsors for them to plan for their event, go back to scoring their leads, which is where we're going to bring in the leads AI
Ah.
into this. And most importantly, one of the blind spot we have is post event when they leave. we don't have a curated version of everything that has happened at the event. And the post-event, what we call as the Spotify Wrapped report, is at the end of the event, they get, okay, here are your goals. Here's what you did. Here are potential next steps for you to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that we think is a value add. There are a number of other value added services we add. We're just getting started. We just focused on how do you make sure the attendees and the sponsors get most out of these events. That's the focus right now.
Okay, got it. All right, excellent. And so you've just launched. Where are you in terms of traction?
We launched end of October, beginning of November is when we launched it. We ran some pilots. Our very first live show is coming up in April, but we're working on few already, and I think we're going to be ready for prime time from Q2.
Awesome. I'm excited. And I think we might actually have a little bit of a hint of a use case on stage at Revved Up, by the way.
Good, good. We will look, this is going to definitely change the whole business model, which we will get into shortly.
And just again for our listeners, I just mentioned the use case at Revved Up. What I'm talking about is we focus on pillars as it relates to how you're deploying data and AI in your organization. And what the first pillar is operational efficiency, which everyone's doing. And you have to do that first, by the way, because you need to, as an organization, to understand what your data capabilities are, your mindset, how you're activating and making decisions. The next one is going to be AI in product. And this is really where Marcus falls, is how AI is being embedded into your product to improve customer interactions, product lift, drive pricing power, customer stickiness, hate to say it, but competitive land grab because it becomes a competitive moat. So that's perfect.
No, looking forward to it. And you're right, most of them are on operational efficiency right now, all the experiments, but we need to get into the revenue. It has to deliver incremental revenue as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to that.
So we're actually, and I knew this was going to happen with you. We're running out of time, but I have got a gazillion other questions I want to ask you. So I'm going to go to because this is a real theme that's out there, and I think for event tech environment and what you're talking about for agents. And just your experience, I'd love your perspective. We are so over tech stacked.
Yeah.
And especially in event tech, it's like you have an app for matchmaking, you have an app for sessions, you have an app for this, an app,
Yeah.
Do you see this world, the agent economy changing that?
Yes. And I think in our discussion, I like the term you use, right? Right now, we live in a tool economy, right? That was your phrase. And I think that'll shift towards agent economy because the past 2 decades, SaaS has been incredibly successful. Why? They sell you a tool for registration. They sell you a tool for lead capture, another tool for something else. And before you know, you got all this monthly subscription revenue and annual subscription revenue. Adding all that up, not only you have to pay to buy the tool, you have to pay to implement the tool, and then you hire somebody to fix the data, clean up all the data across these things. That's why the tool economy has grown, but the customers gaining value is getting harder and harder.
100%.
Right? Good. So that is going to shift. So my epiphany in October 2024 is that is going to be done. The SaaS model has seen the best of the days. It's actually going to shift. And I was really surprised last month, Goldman Sachs posted a chart. I'll find out and send it to you so you can include in the show notes, Heather. They have this beautiful chart where they're saying the TAM for SaaS, which has been like on a peak, is coming down, and the TAM for agent is just exploding, right?
Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well, I want that to happen because we've been overpaying for SaaS, and those companies have created disproportionate value, right, for themselves.
Well, one is just my credulous. I remember when Salesforce launched in 1999. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember it clear as day. So let's just call it 2000. So that's
Yep.
26 years
Yep.
of an industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's short.
Yep.
Which, and I'm not saying it's dying, but the
Right.
point is that it is what's happened with SaaS. It was supposed to be ease of use, cloud based. It became super overcomplicated
Yeah.
because people's standards don't work for every
No.
industry, and it's customization, etc. So it's got hyper, you have that now. Agents are coming in, which makes it you're getting what you need with what you
Correct.
need. You're not
Correct.
paying for extra.
Yes.
um, so I just think that's fascinating. Um,
Let me
do you think?
address let me
Yep.
address your event tech stack question because they're quite related, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
why we have so many tools is because the business model is so good. Saying, let me just get a registration platform. Let me get a lead capture platform. That's the direction we're going. I believe, the mission behind Marcus is we will integrate with everybody, every tool's out there. And
Yeah.
hopefully some of these companies will evolve into building agents, not just tools, because agents are going to talk to agents, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how the work gets done for the end user rather than hopping around the tools to get the job done. What
Mm-hmm.
that means is instead of paying for a monthly subscription to use a tool, you may actually pay of hourly rate for an agent or based on activity it does for you or based on the outcome it accomplishes for you.
Mm-hmm.
There are evolution of business models around agents. I'm looking forward to unpacking this bit more at Revved Up, Heather. This is a fascinating topic on what are the new business models it's actually going to unlock.
Well, I was even just thinking as you were saying that for the event organizer themselves, like our agents, do they need to create
Yeah,
agents for their
of
their
course.
customer segments? It's not going to be enough to be like, well, I'm like they're going to have to become agent creators themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Whether they do it themselves, they work with a partner, but
Yeah.
that's, don't sign up for big, expensive software for long-term contract. I'll go on the record and say, because it hasn't worked out for us. I'm saying it as being responsible for all the software, about 15 months ago. That's what
Yeah.
I've done all my life, and it hasn't delivered for us.
Absolutely. I mean, we could talk all about the whole revenue model. I just saw a post online of some guy. I have to share it with you, by the way.
Yeah,
Their bill for AI and agents is got like $50,000 a month because of the way their tokens and it's
yeah,
just. When this conversation is so there's
yes,
so much to unpack. So I think we have to schedule podcast number two. Um,
yes,
but let's close out quickly with
yeah.
my famous rapid fire. And I gave
Go
you some very interesting questions.
You did.
Um, um, the first one is going to put you on the spot. But you said we're drowning in 15,000 marketing tools and fragmented apps. If you could snap your fingers right now, what would be one event tech you would get rid of today if you could?
I'm good at many, but if I have to pick one, registration. I can open a bank account with my mobile phone. I just register for Clear on the airport, right? Just go into a kiosk and getting it done. That registration platform and systems that are out there, that's the root cause of all our data issues because they're not looked at as a customer interaction capture system, right?
Mm,
That whole thing need to be rethought rather than making it a huge friction at this point. There's more, but I'll stick with that.
I'd love to talk about that one with you a little bit more. Wow. All right. Now, my last one.
Yeah,
You mentioned you're a massive Formula One fan, and we're so thrilled because Revved Up's
that's
brand
your
theme is
theme.
Formula One. So, if we're looking at the global events industry today as the F1 team, what are we? Are we Red Bull, ruthlessly efficient, Ferrari, historic but occasionally chaotic, or are we just Haas trying to survive the season?
Well, I hope your listeners get the reference, but I think we've been has at some point. If I look at it, just planning to survive COVID, most of us just holding on tight to survive, right? So we've been has. I did some digging because somebody mentioned in a conference recently saying, hey, the first conference, first event trade organization happened a few hundred years ago. So I just did the digging to say when was the first official trade show happen? It was 1150, by the way.
Wow.
Okay. That's an important point. The first conference was in 1600. So we've been through few centuries as a format, as a category, right? So incredibly resilient. So we're not a new hotshot in the town. So I would say we are Ferrari, that we've been through cycles. We may not always be at the leaderboard, but we are resilient as an industry. But we're going to evolve ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. And it's a cat with 9 lives. It's no matter how many times you try to shoot the events industry down, COVID, financial collapse, it just comes back because people love to be together and we love being a part of a tribe. So
with you. Look, first of all, it hurts me as a Red Bull fan to say you're a Ferrari, but that's the truth.
Well, that was a great answer. So now my last one, we have a book club that we were creating for Revenue Room Connect members. What is the best book you've read recently, personal or business?
I haven't read fiction in a long time, which is sad. 2 books right now I'm reading on my Kindle. 1929 by Andrew Sorkin, about the big financial collapse that happened in 1929. The theme of that is humans don't learn from our past. We all have to do our own mistakes. Great book. Another book called Reshuffle. This is actually saying about AI, really good book. I know I've read this author in the past, but this talks about AI isn't a topping. It's really going to reshuffle the economy. So I agree with a lot of the points made. Those are 2 books, but I'm a huge podcast listener as well. My favorite podcast, speaking of podcasts, is apart from yours, Heather, apart from Revved Up, a podcast called Acquired. And it's not for the faint-hearted. It's 2 to 3 hour podcast, but they really go into the depth of the brand's story. And I've learned so much listening to that.
Actually, I'm so glad you brought up the podcast part because we're going to add a podcast club as well. And I always forget to ask, but I listen to podcasts all the time now. And I don't know why. It's the last time I've read a printed book. I won't even say because it's embarrassing. But okay. So Max, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fabulous. We could have gone on for hours. And hopefully we'll have another opportunity. We'll get that scheduled. And anyone who wants to connect with Max, we'll put his LinkedIn URL in the show notes. He also mentioned, I guess it was Goldman Sachs or we'll get that in there as well. And again, the conversation doesn't stop here. It continues inside Revenue Room CXO, the only network where CEOs and their revenue critical teams turn AI disruption into growth strategy. And if you want to experience that thinking live, you heard us talk about it a few times on this podcast. Revved Up 2026 takes place at the Vinoy in St. Pete, March 23rd through the 24th. And this is where we'll discuss the future of data and AI and the revenue leadership which will take main stage. So with that, I bid you adieu. We'll see you next time. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Heather. It was a lot of fun.